That was PSG captain Marquinhos at the victory parade after the club won the Champions League. The message was clear: Dembele should win the Ballon d'Or. And now he has. Once a modest prize handed out by a French magazine, the Ballon d'Or is now one of the most polarizing awards in sport. PR, lobbying, campaigning, there's a playbook now. The award is beyond goals or trophies. It's about narratives, about clubs, fans, presidents, even teammates making their case in public. To top it all off, the definition of quote-unquote best has never been fixed. Sometimes it means conquering the World Cup. Sometimes it means winning the Champions League. Sometimes it's just whoever scored the most goals. And the Messi-Ronaldo era only magnified it. For a decade, the Ballon d'Or was the scoreboard for the GOAT wars. But beyond that, it became theatre. A red carpet gala with cameras, tuxedos and celebrity cameos, where football's greatest wait for their name to be read. For players, it's the crown jewel of a career. But for many fans, it represents endless debates. Scroll social media and you'd think one golden ball decides everything. Yet the award's own rules and meaning have shifted again and again, from eligibility to voting to even its organisers. So if the rules keep bending, should the football's most coveted prize still carry so much weight? And if it's supposed to decide the best player in the world, why does it feel more broken than ever? Here is the story of football's most controversial award. This is Football Explained. The year was 1956. French magazine France Football came up with a simple idea: crown the best footballer in Europe. Stanley Matthews was the first winner. Back then, only Europeans could win the award, and only European journalists were allowed to vote. But as football became more global, the boundaries shifted. By 1995, non-Europeans in Europe were eligible. Georges Weah won it that year with Milan, the first African to claim football's most prestigious individual prize. It didn't stop there. In 2007, the doors opened to everyone, everywhere. And just a few years later, the Ballon d'Or merged with FIFA's World Player Award. This is when captains and coaches joined the jury, and on paper it all looked inclusive. In reality, it blurred the lines, because players ended up backing their club or national teammates. Like in 2014, when Messi cast his ballot for Di Maria, Iniesta and Mascherano, or when Cristiano Ronaldo chose Ramos, Bale and Benzema. A trend seen across many other players too. Coaches did the same, where they were voting for their own, and it revealed a bigger truth. Everyone in the game sees it differently. Take Kevin De Bruyne, twice voted PFA Player of the Year by his fellow professionals. Yet journalists have never named him Football Writers Player of the Year. Proof of the divide between how journalists and footballers judge greatness. By 2016, FIFA and France Football split, and the voting privilege went back to journalists only. France Football handpicks senior journalists from each voting nation to help protect credibility. But it also means that one person's ballot carries the weight of millions. Take England, for instance. For years, it was Henry Winter of The Times, a prominent journalist. But why him over other big names in England, especially those covering wider European football extensively? It all turned a bit toxic in 2024. When Real Madrid's Vinicius Jr. lost to President Florentino Perez, blamed quote-unquote countries we do not know, like Namibia, Uganda, Albania and Finland, for not voting the Madrid player in the top 10. The journalist from Namibia fired back. He seems to think that people from my country and others mentioned have no meaningful vote because he considers us inferior. I'd like to know, if I were from a major footballing nation and disagreed with his opinion, what would his argument be then? And then there are the ballots themselves that spark ridicule. Sri Lankan reporter Hafiz Marakar, who has submitted some of the strangest ballots ever recorded, once voting Leonardo Bonucci and another time Trent Alexander-Arnold as the best player in the world. In 2014, England's Roy Hodgson, then national coach and a Ballon d'Or voter, declared Javier Mascherano as the finest footballer alive. And in 2019, Italy's representative ranked Frankie de Jong as the second best player on the planet. Moments like that show why the system has always been under scrutiny. By 2024, UEFA had stepped in as co-organizer to introduce points-based system to make the process more transparent. Every vote is now converted into fixed points, tallied into the final standings. But the truth is, the Ballon d'Or has never stood still. It's been reinvented again and again. Each reform promises to fix it, and yet each reform sparks new arguments, and each one brings us back to the same question: what does best in football really mean? Later in the video, we will discuss how tweets can influence the votes. But before that, here's a quick word from our sponsor, Ugreen. Their new Nexode retractable series is built for traveling football fans like yourself. Whether you're shooting pitch side, need to catch a stream on the go, or just want to stop untangling cables every morning, this is your tech MVP. The Nexode power bank packs 20,000 milliamps and charges 3 devices at once with a built-in retractable USB-C cable, and the 145-watt car charger can charge your M4 MacBook Pro from 0 to 54% in 30 minutes. Tested for over 25,000 retractions, the charger's compact, durable, and makes charging as easy as a tap-in goal. No clutter, no stress, no dead batteries. Perfect for productivity on the go. So if you want to pack the power without the hassle, check out the Ugreen Nexode retractable series. Available now on Amazon and the Ugreen website. Links in the description. Thanks to Ugreen for sponsoring this video. Now, back to the story. The Ballon d'Or has never given us one answer for what it really means to be the best. Sometimes it crowns the player who defines a World Cup. Sometimes it rewards Champions League dominance. But if you're a goalkeeper, well, good luck winning the Ballon d'Or. No keeper since Lev Yashin in 1963 has won it, which makes one thing clear. The best usually just means attackers and goal scorers. When the defenders have won, it's because they've offered something extra: leadership, versatility, or a narrative too big to ignore. Even Oliver Kahn, who saved 3 penalties in the 2001 Champions League final, lost out to Michael Owen. And that's likely because many see football inherently geared towards attacking, including Owen himself. In his own words, it's easier to attack than it is to defend. If you asked me to build a house, I wouldn't be able to do it. But if you give me a few weeks, I'd be able to knock it down. But even as an outfield player, if your brilliance isn't flashy enough, you barely get seen. Think the likes of Lahm or Sergio Busquets, or so many other talented players under the radar right now. Football's quiet brilliance rarely makes the podium. For years, the World Cup offered a predictable pattern for winners, like Zinedine Zidane in 1998, Ronaldo Nazario in 2002, or Fabio Cannavaro in 2006. However, from 2010, that seemed to change. Spain lifted the trophy that year with Andres Iniesta scoring the winner. Wesley Sneijder played in the same final and claimed a treble with Inter that season. Yet the award still went to Messi. Brilliant in La Liga, but no Champions League, no World Cup. 4 years later, Germany conquered Brazil. Still, it was Ronaldo's Champions League campaign that tipped the scale. In 2018, Luka Modric broke the Messi-Ronaldo duopoly without winning the tournament, rewarded instead for carrying Croatia to the final and bossing Real Madrid's midfield. Messi's World Cup in Qatar eclipsed Erling Haaland's treble with Manchester City. Take a look at this table here. The list goes on, and you'll see there's no fixed standard. But squint your eyes hard enough, and you'll see a different pattern emerge. History shows that the award is far more likely to land if you're draped in white or blaugrana. Some shout bias, while others say it simply reflects Spanish football's dominance. The truth is, these two teams, particularly Real Madrid, take the Ballon d'Or very, very seriously. We'll come back to this later in the video, but going back to the rules of the award, constantly changing them haven't helped its case. 2013 is a classic example. Franck Ribéry delivered a historic treble with Bayern Munich. He was best player in Europe, on course for the Ballon d'Or. FIFA extended the voting window by 2 weeks, and in those 2 weeks, Ronaldo scored a hat-trick against Sweden that sent Portugal to the World Cup. Overnight, the momentum shifted. The timing couldn't have been more dramatic. Just weeks earlier, FIFA president mocked Ronaldo at the Oxford Union, calling Messi a good boy whilst mimicking Ronaldo as some mechanical commander. The outrage forced him to apologise, but by the time the vote closed, the mood had flipped entirely, and many saw the news cycle as a key component of influencing the vote. Ribéry later admitted he felt robbed. A decade on, he reminded Ronaldo of it when Cristiano claimed one has to win the Champions League to win the Ballon d'Or. All this to say, in a sport obsessed with expected goals and goal line technology, the Ballon d'Or voting system sure seems subjective. It's often called the Oscars or the Grammys of football. And while those awards have their own flaws, at least their voting systems are robust. For example, the Oscars has nearly 10,000 Academy members vote, with experts from different branches handling nominations before the full group decides. It's subjective too, but such a structure and scale make it harder for individual bias to swing the outcome. So ultimately, with fewer voters and looser criteria, the Ballon d'Or leans more subjective. But Ballon d'Or does have at least one thing in common with those other awards, that there's a lot happening behind the curtains than what meets the eye. 23 minutes. That's how long Real Madrid waited to fire off a tweet. After Spain lost the Nations League final to France in 2021, it said, "Congratulations to our brilliant player, Karim Benzema, Ballon d'Or." No consoling words for Spain. Instead, an opening move in a soft campaign for their star player. Messi ended up winning that year, which was already hotly debated. But many believed Robert Lewandowski's record-breaking years made him the rightful winner, especially with the cancellation of the award due to the pandemic. But later, according to some local reports, French police investigated claims PSG lobbied for Messi in 2021, with messages allegedly linking to the club and a France football editor. Reports of perks like PSG match tickets only deepened the doubts. So by now it should be clear. The Ballon d'Or is shaped not just by goals and trophies, but by branding, internal relationships, and soft campaigns. It's what you would call a commodity. It generates value not only for the winner, but for the ecosystem of media, brands, and states around them. For players, Ballon d'Or clauses are written into contracts. Win it, finish on the podium, even make the shortlist, and bonuses worth hundreds of thousands kick in. Agents and clubs know the trophy boosts a player's market value and sponsorship appeal. For brands like Nike and Adidas, having their guy win is a marketing coup worth more than the trophy itself. That commercial logic is why clubs treat it like a campaign. These days, the entire event is engineered to generate content, clicks, and controversy, the three currencies of the digital age. Who was snubbed from the shortlist? Who was ranked too high? Which continent matters more? Messi versus Ronaldo was the perfect storm for this ecosystem. Every year's vote was fuel for the GOAT debate. Adidas versus Nike, Barcelona versus Madrid. Spain almost treated the debate like a proxy war between these two clubs. It's even a unit of measuring the club's quality. When Julen Lopetegui was sacked in 2018, Florentino Perez pointed to the gulf between Madrid's results and the quality of a team with 8 Ballon d'Or nominees. If you go back to 2013, Real Madrid turned the Bernabeu into a billboard for Ronaldo, handing out 45,000 masks and unfurling giant banners just as FIFA extended the voting window. They take it so seriously. When Real Madrid found out that Vinicius Jr. didn't win, they boycotted attending the ceremony, turning absence itself into a political statement about the award's legitimacy. Sadio Mane recently called it sad that no African player has won since George Weah. He described AFCON as the biggest trophy of his life, but said African players are often unfairly overlooked. And perhaps it's why someone like Egypt's Mohamed Salah, who has had Ballon d'Or caliber seasons, is still waiting for his. Many argue that in a parallel world, if Salah were European and playing for Real or Barca, and if there was enough soft campaigns, his cabinet might have already had one. That's perhaps also part of the reason why Lewandowski didn't win all those years ago, because Bayern Munich culturally care more about the collective and not individual trophy. Not enough anyway to lobby for it. Worth pointing out that despite Bayern's dominance for decades, they haven't produced one Ballon d'Or winner since 1981. Of course, to win the Ballon d'Or, a player must be phenomenally gifted. But let's face it, they must also be at a commercially gigantic club, winning high-profile competitions, scoring goals, and making highlights packages. They need the backing of powerful sponsors. They need to be featured in a compelling media narrative. Today, the Ballon d'Or isn't here to only crown the best footballers. It crowns stories, biases, and the power behind the world's game. Ultimately, every golden ball is a mirror, reflecting not only talent, but the politics, and maybe that's why we obsess over it. Because in the end, the Ballon d'Or tells us as much about football as it does about ourselves.
He had 32 goals, 28 assists that season. Nedved, who won it, had 14 goals and 17 assists.
But look, you can't debate opinions. When journalists are involved and vote, they vote whatever they want. However you want to look at it, they vote whatever they want. And when you look at the votes in the history of it, not only my year, every year, you look at the first three, you're like, really? You must have looked at sometime and you must have looked at some and like, really? So it is what it is. You can't debate opinions.